Hey guys, got a 2007 Camry here, hit a mailbox. Got some dents here in the hood and going to be replacing the fender. It's got a big crease at the top. Also ran through the back and got a little bit of the door. So I've got a little bit of a crease there to fix. Going to be replacing like I said, the fender, the headlight on this side, and I'd planned to replace the bumper, but I'm going to go ahead and just repair it. I ordered one, but the seller canceled on me, and I can't find another one for a decent price without having to go pick one up, and I don't have time to get one. Going to replace this headlight as well. She had cleaned it up and did a little clear coat kit, but we're just going to put two new ones in and make them both match. So I'll end up having to blend the bumper over, which will actually help me save the color match over here on the fender. So repairing this won't be a bad thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the bumper off and out of the way and the headlight and swap the fender out to make sure it fits. And I could do the body work on the hood, but there is some damage along this edge right there. So I don't want to do any body work until I know the fender is where it's going to be, and I'll match this edge to the fender, and I may need some filler there. So I'd rather just wait and apply the filler at once or at one time when I get to that point. But I'm going to go ahead and get the headlights and the bumper off of it so that I can get the fender swapped out. I may end up having to take the wheel off. Just depends on how much access I have back in here to all these screws and things and up under here, but I think that'll be okay. All right, I've got the bumper off. Just some screws across the bottom and like 3 at the top, and the whole bracket comes off this perch here, this one, just lifted it all the way off. I'm gonna leave that headlight in for now just to keep the connectors clean. We'll swap it out later on. Got a little bit of existing damage here. Whoever had done this before glued the bumper right in here. So I may have to get this piece, and if I can, I'll repair this, but it's looking like it'd make more sense to get a bumper. This tab's broken. This is full of glue. I probably can get it out. I'd like to save it. There's really nothing wrong with it except right in here the paint's cracked, and it's really not that bad. Fender, pull the seal off the top here. Gonna get these screws along the top. Just pull there's a grommet that goes through. Some of these you really can't get out without destroying them. This goes through the rocker panel and into the fender right there through this hole. So I just ripped that out. I'll get another one for that since I need to go get some other parts, probably this, and I'll get one of those with it. We have one screw in the fender right in there. So I just popped the rocker panel down. There's actually one screw hole right here. So there's a Phillips head screw in there, that one laying there. The rest of it's just clipped. This clip actually head broke off of it, so I'll probably get one of those or use one I've already got in my parts bin, which I think I've got one of these, should have. And one in the front there that popped out of the rocker. So I've got this down just enough to get the screw out. I'll get that out and I'll set the other fender up here and make sure everything is gonna fit, and I'll pull it back off once I get the hood matched to it. I gotta get this lip here matched up to the new fender, and then I'll pull the fender back off and start the body work. And then when I get done with the body work, I'll trim the fender out and I'll put it back on the car for the paint job, since I need to blend the hood that direction and fix the door and blend it back that way. All right, I've got the fender mostly fit. It's good at the bottom. It gets a little bit wide from about here up, and won't go in any further. But I can see through here with a light. The tab where the hole is to mount it to the body is touching the body, so I'm gonna have to just trim a little bit of that tab off where it'll go further in and pull it back off and just knock that mount back just a hair. I had to pull, this piece right here was pushed back about 1/8 of an inch. I just pulled that out by hand. And same thing here, this mount was pushed back and in, I believe it was. So I just took a longer bolt, give me some leverage, threaded it all the way through, get all the threads. And I just grabbed the channel locks there and just pulled this up and then rotate it around to meet the hole here. So I've got it really close. I just need to drop the hood, but I'm trying to get it fit to the door first. Then I'll worry about this gap up here and then the headlight fitment. But I'm going to take it back off now, adjust this mount back here and trim a little bit of the tab off, and then see where we end up. Here's the problem area. This piece right here, you can see where it was cut off. Right there, that's touching the body, a little protrusion there. So I'm going to trim that off, and plus a little bit more to give me a little more room to push the fender in. I don't need but maybe a millimeter or two, but that's holding it off of the body there. And this mount on the car right here needs to go back just a little bit. So I'm just going to tap it back. I don't believe that got moved, and if anything, it would have been pushed back. So it's probably just the fender. I could maybe adjust this on the fender to where if I want the fender to go back further, I could just bend this in a little bit. But it'll be just as easy to tap that back just a hair and see where it goes. All right, when I get ready to paint this, I'll probably just radius that edge there, well, with the file or a grinding wheel or something. But for now, I'm just going to make sure it fits. I'm going to take it back off to trim it out with paint anyway. So I'm just going to make sure I get it to fit, then I'll do a touch up on that if I need to. All right, I've got this about as good as I'm going to get it. The back is just about perfect. It's a little bit tight down here. I'm going to probably slot that hole to pull it out a little bit, and right around the edge of this, I'm going to roll this lip around a little bit more. Inside here, it's not folded around enough on the fender. It's trying to catch the door. But that's too tight, and it keeps springing back. As I bend it out, it keeps springing back. But up here is fine. This is good. A little piece in here that's trying to scratch the inside of the A-pillar. I'm going to trim that off and just touch the paint up. But all this in here is good. Got a decent gap up here. And I may move this in just a little. This side over here is just slightly tighter than that, but I can move that in some. Down here actually gets a little tight because you can see right down in here there's a little bit of a ridge on the fender. This edge has been bent down and buckled that area right back there on the fender. So I'm going to pull this out and tap that ridge down and get this back out flush with the hood. And this side of the hood here is rolled down. You can see that there's a little bit of a difference in the hood and the fender there. So this needs to come back out. The fender needs to come out at the bottom. And then I think we'll be in business. I'm gonna work on that, and then after I get all that straight, I'm gonna test fit the headlight, and we'll go from there. All right, I think we're good to go on the hood. I just put some tape behind the back of it, and I've just been hitting it with the corner of this rubber hammer till I got the radius back in it to match the fender here. Now I'm checking the gap. It's a little tight over here from the factory at the front, so I'm not going to worry about that. But over here, it's probably a little more even than the other side, but I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to make it wrong just to match the other side. But I'm checking the gap over here. I'm about in the middle of the fender, and I've got I think a 0.17 gap. See that? 0.17 inches. And this was about 0.18, so I pushed it in just a little bit out on this peak, just pushed it in just enough so we can match the other side. So we're down at 0.16 something, depends on where I measure it though. Go back here, 1.6, go a little forward. I may have been forward when I measured it. 163 or 4. That's good enough though. Just a few thousandths difference. So that side's good. It's a little hard to see this on the black fender, but we're going to go with that. I still need to work on that hole at the bottom. I may need to slot it, but I'm going to try to loosen it and pull the fender out as far as it'll go. See if that'll get it. If not, I'll have to slot it. All right, the next thing is going to be to fit the headlight, but while I've got the hood down, I'm going to go ahead and clean this area off. I'm just going to take some lacquer thinner and wipe off all these, basically all the paint transfer from the mailbox, so I can see exactly what's real damage, what's not. It'll just leave the dents. There's going to be some scratches, but it'll get whatever transfer there is will come off and get out of the way. And this actually went all the way down the side of the car, and she didn't even notice that when she brought it over for the estimate, so I told her I'd buff it off. It goes all the way back to the tail light. So the main damage, like right here, this is just a scratch. There's really no dent. So we got damage to this ridge from about here to here, then a dent here, and then just a slight impression here on that ridge. So this, I'm going to go ahead and probably put studs in this unless I can get to the back side of it easily, but I don't think I can. There's a hood pad, and then the frame may be under there too. I'll check and see. If I can get behind it, just knock it out, that'd be ideal. I'll leave the fender on for just a minute. We got a crease here, and it stops somewhere in here, and then it just travels down the car. It's a little bit lighter in here, and you can start to see it a little bit more. Kind of hard to see on the camera here. See the scratch all the way down the side of the car there. And it stops right here. I guess that's where it cleared. Didn't quite get the tail light. But all this should buff off. It's just right on the surface. There's no dents. Right back here there's a slight dent, but I can hardly even see that, so I'm not going to worry about it. We'd end up painting the whole side of the car for that. That's all I see on the front door there, is just right in the front, so I'll have to fill that. But I'll get all this prepped on the hood first, and then I'll go to that. That way we can do primer on all that. And I actually ordered a bumper. This thing's got too much damage in it. This tab's missing. It could be repaired, but you got time in that. Time to sand all this paint off all the way around. It's scarred underneath because there were some bricks on the base of the mailbox you hit. And this has been refinished one other time too, and it was painted, all the chips were painted over, and now it's got 1,000 more chips in it. So I ordered a bumper on eBay for $85 shipped. So I'll just do that. See what else here. Not a whole lot of damage on the hood as far as rock chips go, but there's a tiny ding here I'm going to try to work out before I paint it. Other than that, I'm just probably going to, I may sand a few spots out of here, but I'm trying to blend this hood just across, so I'm probably just going to have to clear over whatever's there. Whatever primer ring I get here, I'll just cover that up and blend half the hood. Thinking about blending the fender over here just to make sure the bumper matches. But you can see back here, maybe you can see it. Rear bumper is nowhere close. And she must be okay with that. That's been painted at one time. So I may just, since there's really no damage here, I can just scuff it and clear it. I might put a little color here to match the bumper just to make sure it matches. Just for peace of mind for myself. I don't have to worry about anybody noticing it. I'm gonna go ahead and get the headlight tested and pull this fender back off once I know the headlight will fit it, and do the roll on the lip there and trim this off, and that'll be ready to trim out and put back on the car for the final paint job. All right, I got the headlight in, fits pretty well. Had to modify the fender a little bit more. Mounted right up to the top and front. This whole fender was out probably 1/4 inch to the outside of the car. I ended up having to roll this whole part of the fender around this bracket to meet it up with the headlight. So everything fits pretty well now. Nice even gap. It's not rubbing too hard anywhere in one spot where it's going to pop the paint off later. Down in here, right in there was making contact with the headlight. There's a lot of excess metal around where they folded it when it was stamped, so I just shaved the back side of that corner off with the belt file. And now there's some clearance in there now. It's not making contact. It was holding the headlight out slightly. So that looks good. I'm gonna leave that other one in there just as a reference to know what it should look like until I get everything finished and put this one back in. Then I'll swap that one out. I don't want to mess with the factory location just yet. Another thing that I found with this was whoever had repaired this bumper didn't want to fix this, so whenever they put the bumper back in, they filled these slots up with probably panel bond or something, and just actually flooded it in there so thick that the bumper actually was stuck to the bracket, not really clipped in. So I've got to get one of these, and clips are broken in the back of it just from getting it out. I didn't really try to save it since I was going to replace it anyway, but this piece has got to be replaced. It's about 30 bucks. I think I found one on eBay that was actually OEM, brand new, for about $13. So I ordered that. It's on the way. And that goes in here, and that bolt in the headlight will actually go through that plastic bracket into the headlight, but I've just got it in there for fitment right now. So that bracket's ruined. It's full of glue. I can't get it out anyway, even if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and get the headlight and fender back off of it, since I've got to trim this and roll that lip around a little more on the back edge, because I've got to let this thing sit outside overnight, and I don't want anything happening to the fender or the light. So I'm going to take those back off real quick and just store them in the storeroom until I get back on this, and I'll just work on the hood and the door. I need the fender out of the way anyway to be able to block the door when I get the filler on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and take it off now, since I got to let it sit outside, and I'll tape up these holes right here in case it rains. I don't think it's supposed to rain, but just in case, I'll go ahead and tape that up. And the next thing will be the body work. All right, I just backed it out, washed these two panels, the door and the hood. I actually washed this fender too in case I decide to blend it, which I think I'm going to. It's pretty clean. All I need to do is scuff it, and when I go to mask off the hood, I can just mask this gap right here with some foam masking tape, and just tape around this edge here instead of just the hood, and just clear it with the rest of it. Wouldn't take that much longer, and that way I can pretty much guarantee a color match there. And I'll go ahead and take the headlight out too for the blend. I'm going to take the handle out and the belt molding, but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and sand this to bare metal right here, get the filler on it, so that can be setting up, and I'll start working on this. But I'm not going to do any pull right here. It's so shallow, I'm just going to fill it. But that way that filler will be setting up on me while I work on the hood. And when I get done with the hood, I'll put the filler on that. And while that's setting up, I'll come and get the rest of this trim off. And by that time, I can start blocking this since I put it on first. Then I'll go to that area over there. Main thing is, what I want to do first is to get the primer on the car so it can sit as long as possible and shrink back as far as it's going to go before I get ready to paint this thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the filler on it, and then get the primer on it soon after that as possible. All right, I've got the area that I want to sand out and mask off with that tape. The tape up here at the belt lines, just in case I slip the sander for some weird reason, I hit the chrome. That way I won't cut through the chrome there. I'll protect it. I'm going to take the paint off to bare metal inside the tape box, and once I get that off, I'll take it off and I'll feather that back with 180, but I want 80 grit down to metal here where the crease is, but I don't want to go too far with it. That'll leave me bare metal inside here, and then I'll just feather it back. Alright, I'm down to bare metal where I need to be. Now these transitions are way too close together. Those really need to be about 1/4 inch apart from each layer to the next. So now that I've got 80 grit scratch where I want the filler to be, I'm going to pull this off, it's tape, and I'm going to feather all these feather edges out with 180 to spread those transitions out. But I want to leave an 80 grit scratch in here where I want the filler to stick. Alright, that was the more aggressive DA with 80 grit. This is going to be the a little bit finer finish DA with 180. I may go back with the 80 grit and hit the bare metal one more time after I get this done, because I may end up overlapping that too much and taking the 80 grit out of this where I wanted to leave it. But that's not a big deal. The main thing is I want this in 180, and I'll go around it with 400 for the primer edge. I'll continue on until I get those spread out a little further, and I'll be back to put some filler on it. Okay, it's ready for filler. I just need to blow it off and do a little wax and grease remover, but you can see I've got almost an inch in transition here from the metal to the E-coat to the primer or sealer, and then the base and the clear. I've got a body line right here, so that's kind of a natural break. Sometimes I'll just leave that as a hard transition because it's not really going to show that much. But down in this area where it's flat, I've got about a ½ inch here, ½ inch here in the sealer, and ½ inch in the base coat. So that's even more ideal than about a ¼ inch. So that's gonna work out good, looks like. I'm gonna clean it off and be ready for some filler. All right, ready for some filler. This is Evercoat Quantum 1. I've got the tape guide there just so that I know where the filler needs to go and I don't have to clean any more off the rest of the panel. It's the only filler I need is right through that area between the tape, pieces of tape. That's why I masked it off so I wouldn't do that right there. I'll wipe that off with some thinner when I get done with this so it doesn't set up on there. That ought to be enough. It's very shallow. It's just enough of a crease to see it. And plus it's under the mirror. She didn't even notice it till I told her about it when she brought it for the estimate. Pull this off while it's still wet. And we're gonna wipe this off with some thinner. And now all I'll have to do is run a block over that till it's flat, and that'll be done. Now I'm going to start on the hood. When I get the hood filled, I'll get back here to taking the trim off. Okay, I'm going to see if my rust stripper wheel will take this paint off. It ought to. I don't like using a grinding disc because that takes more metal off than I really want to do. Especially on a hood, you don't want to thin the metal any thinner than it is. Right here is fairly stiff, but if you're doing something out here, it would make a big difference in how springy it is. So I'm going to take the paint off where I need to with this so I can pull studs. I looked underneath the hood and the frame comes all the way into here. So I can't get to the back side of it. I'm just going to have to pull with studs and do hammer and stud work. Then I'll just cavity wax the inside when I get done where I burn the paint off the back side. We'll start with this. If this won't do it, I'll get the grinding wheel, but I think it will. And I want to minimize my repair area this way because I have to blend this. Coming off pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and get these two spots and come back when I get some studs ready. Okay, for now I'm just going to put a bunch of studs on it where I know I can lift it, and then I'll come back and add any more later that I need to if this is not enough. This ridge is down some. I'm trying to lift around it on either side. You go from the outside towards the inside. If you're starting in the deepest part, you'll pull a high spot in the middle. See a little bit of smoke, and we'll have to keep an eye on the underside of the hood. There's probably some glue in here in the frame that I'm melting. Go raise the hood and see what I'm doing under there. Definitely don't need a fire. Looks okay right now. Let's lift on these a little bit. I'm going to use this ridge here as a place to press. It's fairly stiff. You see that? Yeah. I'm going to tap down around it and grab my hammer, which I don't have. I'm going to put 2 or 3 more in the center here. Do the same thing. I need to put one right here and pull up there while I push down here. There's a little bit of a ridge between these 2 dents. Let's get some more studs. Try to find the low spot in it, somewhere in here. Pull one here, maybe one next to it. Try to squeeze two more in here. All right, that's really close. I'm gonna put one or two here and do the same thing. I think you get the idea. And I'll show you the filler next. All right, before we go on any further, I wanted to show you this. And after I pull the studs and cut them off and I grind them down with my little 3-inch grinder here, I need to check and see which spots are too high. So I'm gonna drag this little metal ruler across. And if I can rock it across that point, then I know it's too high. It's okay right here on the end, but as I come across, it's rocking right there a little bit. Right there for sure where that stud was. A little bit there. And last one, that one there's okay, but I'm gonna check them all like that, and then I'll tap them down with the flat face of the hammer if it'll work. If not, I'll have to just pinpoint it. The filler will be next. All right, everything's smoothed out. Everything's in 80 grit, so I'm gonna feather this out with 180 after I put the filler on, because I'm gonna finish it out in 180 anyway. So I'm gonna start this area with fiberglass reinforced filler just because this hood might get slammed a lot. And I've got some welds I need to cover up anyway. So for those two reasons, I'm gonna start just right in the center here where I did the actual welding to get it mostly level with fiberglass filler, and then I'll go over the top of it with that Quantum 1, and I'll add a little Quantum 1 there. That's not deep enough to really even, really need probably anything more than primer, but I'm gonna go ahead and put some there anyway, just to level it off while I have it out for